Welcome back. On this lecture, we will now calculate the P/E ratio for Apple and Microsoft. On this slide, let's calculate the PE or price earnings ratio for Apple. So, what is the price earnings ratio or PE ratio for short? The PE ratio relates a company's share price to its earnings per share. As an example, a high PE ratio could mean that a company's stock is overvalued, but it could also mean that investors are expecting significant growth in the future. In practice, there are different types of PE ratios. For example, there's a forward or a trailing PE ratio. In the example on this slide, we will be taking the PE ratio as at a point in time, and here I'll take it as at year end. So, how is this ratio calculated? Here, we'll start with the share price at the fiscal year end for Apple, which closed at $112.28. And then here we have the diluted earnings per share of $3.28. When we take the share price over the diluted earnings per share, we come up with a PE ratio of 34.23. So what does this mean? Well, this tells us that Apple's share price is valued around 34 times its annual earnings per share. In other words, investors are willing to pay around $34.23 for every $1 of earnings generated by Apple. Now, let's calculate the PE ratio for Microsoft. Again, we'll use the same formula, which is the share price over EPS. For Microsoft, they closed their share price at their fiscal year end at $203.51. They then closed with a diluted EPS of $5.76. When we take the share price over the EPS, we come up to a P/E ratio of 35.33. What does this mean now? And how does it compare to Apple? Well, here we can see that Microsoft's share price is valued around 35 times its annual earnings per share. This is actually quite similar to what we saw on the previous slide where Apple had a P/E ratio of 34. Overall, the P/E ratio for both Apple and Microsoft are very similar, with a slightly higher P/E ratio for Microsoft as at the respective fiscal year end.